A good property manager can make or break your investment. So here is the number one thing to look for when you're hiring a property manager. Their experience with similar assets. So what do I mean by that? So for example, a property manager is experienced in managing single family homes, but they have never managed a multifamily apartment, even a 4-unit, 8-unit, 12, 32, 64, or larger, then you should not hire them for managing a multifamily property. Even does not matter how small that is. So I have a real life example for you. My first wholesale deal that I did in 2018. So I targeted this seller who's based out of New Zealand. The gentleman owned a 12-unit multifamily complex in Clinton Township on Deanhurst Street, right? But that property was mismanaged completely, where the water bills were high that he was paying for. Literally, the property management did not have any experience in managing 12-unit. And in essence, they were stealing money from the investors because they're collecting their management fee regardless of if the tenants are paying rent or not, regardless of if the investor is positively cash flowing or not. So it was a total nightmare, even though the asset was amazing. So I went in as a wholesaler and I actually got this property under contract and I wholesaled it to one of my investors for $51,704 assignment fee. That's for another video. But the point of this story is, because this was not managed properly, a great deal became a horrible deal. A great story, a potential great story, became a nightmare story for that investor. And I feel bad for him. So a good property manager can actually make or break your deal. Make sure, number one thing you're looking for is, do they have experience in managing similar asset classes? And tip here is ask them for references of their current investors that they're managing properties for, and ask them for permission to reach out to these investors. Big red flag when they say, no, you cannot talk to our other clients. Huge red flag. Don't work with this property management company. Make sure they give you the references and allow you to reach out to them professionally, LinkedIn, email, whatever they give you permission for. But you should be able to reach out to those investors and ask, hey, how has your experience been with this property management company? Without doing that, don't move forward with this property management company. Number two thing you're looking for is their tenant management experience. They could be great in renovating the property. They could be great in marketing it and putting a tenant in. But what kind of tenant are they putting in? Do they have any experience in actually managing tenant? Because managing people in and of itself is not for everyone. It requires huge skill. And that's why property management companies age, lifespan on average is only 2 years. Every 2 years, these property management companies close, because it's such a headache dealing with people, right? So make sure they have the experience of tenant management. I'll give you some examples. I have seen property managers put tenants in, they market, hey, we're going to look for your income 3 times the rent. Great. Okay, so that's the standard criteria. So the rent is $1,500 per month. The income has to be $4,500 per month. But in America, as we all know, government takes out crazy taxes. So when they're looking at, so lazy, man, when they're actually verifying the tenant's income, they're looking at the payroll. They're just looking at the top line, $4,500. Let's say it's $4,650. They're like, okay, qualified, because my requirement is $45. But they don't look at the pay stub, the payroll. Out of that, 20 to 25% taxes. And more crazy than that, what I have seen is that person might have a childcare support payment that they have to pay every month. And that is garnished from their wages. And if they don't pay, they're criminal, right? So, and that childcare, depending on what that person's situation is, it could be from $700 to, I have seen $2,500 childcare payment. So it's making $4,500, the gentleman. But after the taxes being taken out, he's at $3,500. Then let's say another $700 is going to childcare payment. So he's actually making $2,800, not even 2 times more than the rent. So how do you think he can afford paying the rent, right? And this is why I'm talking to you, the investor, you wonder why this tenant was good. My property management company said it's a great tenant and they only paid for the first month, second month, and stopped paying from the third month. Well, first month, second month was probably saved up. Third month, they had a flat tire. They cannot pay you anymore. It's done. It's the end of the story. Another example, they don't have tenant management experience. When there are 2 co-occupants with combined income applying for a lease. So if it's not husband and wife, which is very common in America, they live together. We don't even know if they actually live together. But let's say they come and they say, hey, we live together. It could be the guy only lives there once a week. He has other arrangements, but they're using just to get this apartment, just to secure this apartment. They're showing both of their incomes and combined they're at 5,000. So the person, the lazy property manager, does not even, again, look at the pay stub. And let's say the more interested party was the woman. The woman is texting, calling, seeing, arranging everything, but she only makes $1,500 per month. And the guy makes $3,500 per month, and he's probably not even living there. Okay? They're not husband and wife, whatever setup they have. Now, when and it happens most of the time, they have the breakup. What happens? The guy's out because there's no commitment. There's no legal binding. Yeah, he's on the lease. By the time you get him and, evict him and all that, he does not have legal binding with the woman, I'm saying, right? So he's out. Now, the woman cannot afford. So then you have to go through an eviction. So in this case, I make sure that our property management companies do not rent out to any tenants who cannot qualify the properties by themselves, unless they're legally married husband and wife. That's a different story. If it's two friends, two roommates, whatever the case might be, you have to be able to qualify this individually. Because I'm not going to go through your issue. One guy leaves and you're going through your drama. I don't want to be dragged into that. And by the way, I'm telling you all this from my personal experience. We grew a property management company in Greater Detroit area from 0 to 465 plus units. Then we sold it to a much larger property management company. Then we got into constructions and developments. With all this experience, I'm telling you what I have seen investors coming to us crying and asking us for help because other property management companies screwed them up. And I don't want the same to happen to you. Number 3, their knowledge of local laws and regulations. And it might sound very simple, but it's not. And I have seen crazy nightmare stories again. For example, in our city of Warren, where we used to do majority of the businesses, there is a certain law that, you have to pull permit when you change the electric panel or when you upgrade the electric panel. Okay. So sometimes you might buy into a property with an updated electric panel and you just think it's fine. You don't check for the permits or anything. You hire a property manager. The property manager also does not tell you that, hey, there's no permit for it. Now, when you go and apply for the rental license, the city inspector comes, looks at the electric panel, puts it in their system, the serial number, and they see that it was recently installed, no permits are pulled. Now you have to be the one pulling the permit. And permit costs, I don't know what the cost is right now, let's say $170, but they won't just allow you to pull the permit because the licensed electrician now will come and always say, oh, it was installed wrong, blah, blah, blah. I have to fix it, another $400 or $500. So you were $700, $800 negative, and your rent was probably only $1,200 you were getting, right? All this could have been avoided is the property management company. Before taking the handover of the property from you, this vacant property, they made sure that they checked everything and they gave you an estimate of how much it will cost to bring it completely up to code and make it rental compliance ready, license ready. So you know before going into that property what could be the potential cost. So it's very important to get a property manager that understands local laws and regulations. Number 4, their skill when it comes to construction management. Do they know how to manage constructions? Do they know how to manage budgets? Do they know how to manage timelines? And most importantly, do they know how to manage people, the contractors, the people that are going to work in the construction, right? So these skills are very necessary. For example, I have seen one property manager locally has taken responsibility of a construction project in our area and charged like a property management, construction management fee. I'm going to oversee everyone. But after they took the money, the property manager is probably a good guy, but very naive and not competent, right? So good does not always cut it. You have to be competent. You could be trustworthy, but if you're not competent, we're not going anywhere, right? So when we are criticizing people, we're not criticizing that they're not trustworthy. I never do that. I don't know what's inside them. We can only look at their competency, what they do actually with their skill. So once he took the project on, the construction company showed up only for a week. He paid $5,000. It was like a $15,000 project, and they stopped showing up. And they did not have any other construction workers. He did not have a proper contract in place. So who pays? The property manager is not paying for anything. He just lost $5,000 for the investor. The investor has to pay another $15,000 and probably more now to get another contractor to come in, fix some of the work those guys have done, work after them, fix those up, and then finish the project to completion. What's the moral of the story? You have to make sure they have solid ground on construction. Most importantly, and ideally, they have in-house employees. Like when we're running the construction, our property management company, we had 2 in-house maintenance guys. At every call, Chris and Dan, 2 guys, like all day, just going to properties, 400 plus properties, boom, 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 knocking things out. Plus, on top of those 2 guys, I had well-established relationship with multiple companies, and I was giving them so many projects that it was as if they told me they were working on my payroll, even though they were independent contractors, when I was keeping them day in, week out busy. So they did not get the chance to work for other property management company owners or investors. So I was their priority. Like I still to this day, I'm in Dubai right now, but I call someone at 2 a.m. in America time, ask them, hey, Carl, can you please go and check this property? Because the tenant texted, the furnace is not working and she has a small baby in the house and it's like minus 20 degrees outside. Okay, I want you to go and check. Not only he picks up the phone at 2 a.m., he actually calls the tenant and goes there. This is the type of relationship we have built. So you have to make sure your property manager has those kind of relationship, has those kind of reputation, and has a grip over the whole construction management process. Because everything is good when there is no war. You have to make sure your property manager is battle tested. When there's that big remodeling expense that comes up, when there is a big rehab project they have to manage and take it to completion before renting out to the next tenant, can they handle the heat? Number 5 thing you're looking for is their financial management skill. What do I mean by that? Do they have a process in place to collect rent? Is it electronic? What if the tenant does not pay rent by the 5th? What do? Are they sending out a 3-day notice? What if they don't pay by the 10th? Are they sending out a 7-day notice? What if they don't pay by the 20th? Are they actually filing in the court for eviction? Who's paying for all this filing? Are they keeping it from your reserves? And at the 30th, are they sending you the rent minus the expenses? Are they sending you a statement with it? Or is it just all verbal? Whatever they remember, they'll scramble an email and send it to you. I'm telling you right now, somebody will do that and charge you only 6%. It's worth for you to pay 8% and get a professional property management company, because in the long term, you'll save way more. And when I say long term, not in 3 years, 5 years, in 6 months, you'll see your savings. When you hire a sole operator, property manager, where everything is just in my head, nothing is documented properly, nothing is systemized properly. I don't know what the heck is going on your property because I have to remember it, versus someone who has a solid financial management system in place. They're doing solid accounting. We were at one point giving our rents plus paying contractors plus employees, like 600 plus people, entities were getting paid every month on the 10th. If there were no rents collected for you by the 10th, we had a statement going out with an explanation. Your tenant did not pay, and these are the steps we have taken. So it's a lot of large-scale operation, and that's what our investors appreciate, right? Complete transparency. So make sure, ask them, how are you tracking these expenses? At the end of the year, are you sending me a report where I can completely see how much rent I made, how much were the expenses, what was my net income? So I can just forward that document to my accountant for filing for taxes? Or do I have to do all the math? Like, find those questions out. I'm telling you, at the end of the year, you are going to thank yourself if you worked with a professional property management company with a professional financial management system in place. Number 6, talking about systems. What kind of CRM are they using? Because it's massive, especially anybody managing more than 20 properties. And if they don't have a property management software, it's all on their phones, on their Apple Notes, on their emails, like in Google spreadsheet, it's not going to work out. Maybe 10 to 15 properties, 20 plus, it's never going to work out. Because what if the tenant, you call them asking for rent, the tenant says, hey, I'm going to pay you $300 by tomorrow. The remainder $700, I'll pay by the 15th. But hey, before I pay that remainder $700, there are a couple of issues in my basement. I want your maintenance guy to come and fix those. Otherwise, I'm just paying $300. I'm not paying the other $700. Did you just hear what I said? Now, imagine the property manager is, let's say, driving. This tenant gives that information. Another call comes in. They're going to forget. Where are they keeping track? Are these calls getting recorded? Are these automatically getting transcribed into the system for another person to pick up, put them in the notes, send a maintenance guy? How are you keep making sure the maintenance guy actually went there and did the work? Are they sending pictures back to the software? Like the software that we used, we could go back like 7, 8, 10 years, as far as the property has been with us, and exactly see the date with timestamp when the property manager went there and actually takes picture before, like this light is not working. They fixed it, take picture after, the light is working, they sign off, And right away, our in-house property manager texts the tenant, are you happy? Yes, I'm satisfied. All these with timestamps. So if the tenant a year later stops paying rent and says, oh, this is a slum landlord, I have been, asking for this to be fixed, they never fix it. Your property manager has a full documentation in place to show up with your attorney in the court and fight the case for you, which we have done hundreds of times. So make sure they have a proper CRM in place. So this and so many other things that I cannot, it will take me just 7 hours just mentioning the importance of CRM and things you can do or things that could go wrong if you don't have a CRM. So make sure they have a proper system in place. Last one, make sure they know how to focus on tenant retention, because it's very counterintuitive. The way the industry works is if the tenant does not renew their lease and if the property manager then has to find a new tenant for you, they actually make more money because now they get to charge you the full commission for finding a new tenant versus just charging you the lease renewal fee, right? So in that 12-month of lease period, are they doing enough? Is just enough for them to retain the tenant? Are they responding to tenants' calls? What are their protocols in responding to tenant maintenance calls, inquiry calls? What are they doing? How are what we used to do, let's say the tenant was late in paying rent, we used to have bad cop, good cop. One person used to call, say, hey, look, I have no control over things. It's the legal team. What they do is by the 10th, if you don't pay rent, they file for eviction. I have nothing to do. They're like, oh, can we talk to your manager? They always want to talk to someone. Sure, I'll transfer. Even that person being the bad cop, they're, submitting the guilt to a boogeyman, which is the legal team. And then the other person calls, we completely understand. You want to get on a payment plan. If you pay by this date, we can work something out, all those things. But at the same time, we're going with the legal proceedings. So all these things, how are you retaining the tenant? Are you making sure they're in a good habitable place? Everything is being taken care of. All their maintenance inquiries are being taken care of in a timely fashion. Are you setting the right standard with them? Hey, if you need a light bulb changed, we expect you to do it yourself. Is it written down anywhere? Hey, if the furnace is not working, we want you to change the filter first and turn the thermostat off and then on and then see if it comes back. Are those things written down somewhere, or are they actually wasting the landlord's money, right? For example, all furnace is not working. You send your best technician, he charges $250. All he does is resets the thermostat and the furnace is back on. So who's paying for that $250? The landlord is. And probably the property manager is making a markup of $50 and the contractor is making $200, free money for them. And the poor investor just lost money. So these things you have to make sure how they have the proper systems in place, how everything is linked together, and how are they prioritizing tenant retention.